It's not what you think. Okay, so I've got my sanding tools, whatever I want to use. Some Java chalk paint, which is a very dark brown. A variety of little birdies I might want to use. These I usually get thrifted, and these are too. And then this moss that I got from TEMU, I've had for quite a while. I'm getting to the end of it. Makes me very sad. I love it though. And this little cheese box. This one had a lid, but I, for the life of me, can't find it. And I thought, you know, this is the perfect size for what I want to do. We're going to use it. Look how splintery this is. You've got to be so careful on these things. I'm going to immediately sand this down. You can also use a sander, electric sander if you have one, but I want to do this to show you that it can be done even if you don't have power tools. So I'm going over the inside, the outside with the bigger block, all the bigger areas, and then for the smaller areas like where the pieces meet, I'll be using this. And I appreciate everybody directing me in the numbers of the sanding. You are very right, and I am very wrong. And I am willing to say that, yes, in a video, I did get the grit wrong, and I was very gently, so thank you for that, directed in the right direction with that. So 80 grit is very rough. 120, not so rough. Got it now. I got it, y'all. Thank you very much. I'm learning too. I'm not saying that I'm a pro here. I'm self-taught. And I appreciate when I am given constructive criticism, you know, because I would never be mean to anybody. So please don't be mean to me. Please. All right, so the inside is going to be Spanish moss, but everything else is going to be this dark brown color. I don't want my colors bleeding together, so I'm going to be sure that I am drying this completely before I put down my next color. So here's that Spanish moss. I'm going to put this all the way on this inside, and I'll be sure to get it snugged up next to that corner. With whatever brush you find easier to make a straight line, then you can use that just to give you a nice clean finish. But really, we're going to be doing some things on the inside of this box where you might not necessarily see if you're, you know, if you get a little bit on the edge. Then I'm going to dry it. This is just one coat. It's very thick. I love the green color. This is really a pretty green. So now I've got a variety of thrifted and purchased pieces here. I'm going to grab that moss and start putting down like a little ledge. Oh, nope, we're making the bird's nest first. That's what we're doing. So I've just taken that under section that looks sort of woody and mossy and just rolled it onto itself and tucked it under to make a little bird's nest. It's got a little moss on the outside, you know, the green part, so it looks pretty much like a little nest would look. Pretty similar, right? And then I'm going to cut a section off to make a little slanted area here. We're going to make this not flat on the bottom of the box, but we're going to give it a little something different, because these little different things that we do make a difference in our projects and make them special, right? By all means, put it right in the bottom if you want to. Now this is a little bit of foam that came in some packaging for something that I bought. I don't know, I've had it for a while, but the fact that it's black is going to help it blend in, I think. And I'm just going to cut it on angles so that I can put it right to the side here to make a little bit of a ledge, almost like maybe it's on a hill. Then I'll add some hot glue. Now this will melt if you put too much. So if you're gonna need a bigger piece, then you know you might want to use some mounting tape or something on there so you don't lose the sizing. See that big old bruise on the side of my hand? Y'all, I do not remember how I did that. I honestly do not remember, but it's healing now, but it looks bad, doesn't it? That's what happens when you fair skin. Every little bump and bruise shows up, so no worries, y'all, it's fine. I'm going to stretch that moss out just a little bit so that I can cover this area. And that's another thing that I like about the moss, is that it's so easy to put down. If you don't want to melt what is underneath there, you don't want to melt that, you can just use floral pens. That's, you know, pretty much what these pens are made for florals, for greenery, for whatever. It holds everything in place, right? So if this were hair, these are the bobby pins, right? Did y'all's Mama use bobby pins in her hair? Did she put the little bun in her hair and put the bobby pins in it? Because Mama did, and she used those big old barrettes. They were big and curved, and they were like silver and not turquoise, what do you call it? Tortoiseshell, and then gold. Yeah, she wore those things, and she put little bobby pins in her hair. I love my Memo. I love her. And she's up in heaven now, so she's watching my videos, and I bet she's enjoying them. Because she was always supportive, no matter what. She was always supportive of us. Okay, so now everything's pinned down, but you can use glue. You know, you can use mounting tape. You can use any type of regular glue if you want to use it. My projects are not made to sell. I use my projects for myself. So, and if I give them to anybody, they know. I tell them, look, it's as is, right? It's as is. So, the little pins, if you're bothered by that, you can cover that up with a little hot glue, because the hot glue can go on top of plastic and it's not going to be a problem. So it'll be fine on top of that. I just don't want to melt that foam, and it will melt if you put hot glue on it to some extent. Now I'm just choosing a place, since I've got my branch in there, I'm choosing a place for my little nest for my bird to sit. Now, taking into consideration that the bird I'm using is a little chubber, she's a little chubber, and she needs room to sit comfortably in her nest, right? By the way, I don't mean that in a negative way. I'm a little chubber too. So, I say it out of love. She's nice and round and fluffy. There you go. She's a fluffy girl. But and she may be a boy. I mean, that may be a boy. I don't know. But we're going to put our little, we need to make room for the bird, is what I was getting at, and I got very sidetracked. Thank you, antihistamines. Okay, now we're going to move on, and we're going to take some of this ferny looking stuff. And you can use a little bit of hot glue if you want your pieces to have a little more movement. And when I do these types of arrangement, I always like to have something hanging over the edge. I just think it looks more wild and interesting. So that's why I do that. Also, the greenery that you have, remember that remember that you can cut those off. They're on wire or they're plastic, so cut them into pieces if you need to. If it's too big for scale, but you like the colors maybe, or you like the texture, like I like these, just cut them into sections and use them. All right, so now I'll just be using some hot glue to hold this baby in place. And I'm going to cut down another pick, cut off some little pieces too, and then I'll put those around where I'm going to put her, and any other place that I feel like it needs to come out of the little area where he or she is nested. I always like to refer back to the piece that I have to put in there, because I want to make sure everything that needs to go behind it is there before I put that bigger piece in place. So I'll add a little bit more of that ferny looking stuff. Really don't know what this is. Really don't know, but I love the texture of it. It's pretty, isn't it? I'm curling some pieces down, and these are just plastic. The center has wire, but this is just plastic, so you get a lot of freedom and movement. But in order to keep it in place, you do have to use a little bit of glue. So I'm just kind of sticking things together here and there. And then we'll put this down. I am mini purling it today. We're going to leave the tag on. Nobody's going to see that. I'm going to just flood it with the glue here and sit it down right in that little nest. Now I'm also going to go underneath the tail and add some glue, and then right behind the bird where it sits, the body sits against the back of the box, I'll add glue there. And because I did that, hindsight, I have to re-glue my tail. And then I'll hold it in place for a moment, give it time to dry and that glue to cool off, so it is, staying where it needs to stay and nothing's flopping out. Then I'll just add some little random pieces that I had left, because why not? Why not? Let's use those pieces, right? Or either put it in your scrap bucket for later. Now there's right at the top of this box a little area that almost looks split, and that's the perfect place to hang it, so I don't have to add an additional hanger. And this is how it looks on my back porch with some natural lighting. I thought y'all might enjoy a little change. And I love the look of that. I think it is so precious. So perfectly woodland and country. So cute. Hope you like this piece. Come watch my videos on Monday and Thursday at 6 p.m. I'll see you in the comments. The next is a fern topiary. All right, let's refer back to the sanding tools. and the antiquing wax, little brushes, some foam blocks. This is the lid and this is the bottom. It looks like an ice bucket to me. What is this? Do y'all know what this is? It's got that very orangey finish. And then I've got some fern picks that came from TEMU. Not sponsored, y'all. I thrifted these topiary pieces. This is like a boxwood, I think. And then I have a dowel rod that I'm going to recycle. And we're going to use the top for a different project, and we're going to use the bottom for a project of its own. So we're going to make two out of this one. I'm going to start by trying to sand off the orange. Very difficult to do. I should have used my power sander to do this, but you know, again, not everybody has a power sander, so we're going to go with whatever. Isn't it weird that the finish looks like it's green where it came off? It's really just more orange. After it is sanded as much as I could possibly do it with the handheld sander, trying to get some of the shiny off of it, I'm just going to go over it with a cloth here and wipe all the dust off. Then I'll take my antiquing wax and go over the entire thing. This antiquing wax is going to dull down that orange quite a bit. Now you'll still see some of that honey color through there, but it's much better in my opinion. Much better. So here is the bucket, and it is completely covered, as well as my hands. Full coverage there. And then here's the lid. I'm going to let mine dry overnight. You can see the difference that it makes. And I like it much better with antiquing wax. See the difference? Yes. It's kind of hard to tell sometimes when you're doing a project if you don't have before and afters, if you've really made any headway, right? So maybe take some pictures for yourself for before and afters. I always forget, but now looking back, I can see it. So now after I have waxed it, it is set overnight. I'm going to go back over with the little antiquing wax on a brush where I can get in the little cracks and those little depressed areas, make them a little bit darker. And then after that's dry, we can start putting in our arrangement, which is pretty much the easy part. I'm going to make sure my handle's in the front just because I like it in the front. And I am going to put my ferns down. There are 4 ferns, and I'm going to do a north, south, east, west. Very easy. And position those in there. Okay, and then I'm just going to take the ferns and fluff them out because you know they'll be flat when you get them. You have to fluff everything out. It's really going to fill it in. And then we're going to save that middle spot for the topiary section. I'm going to take my dowel and I'm going to paint it in that Java paint. I'm just using a foam brush because it's easier to paint like a dowel than using a brush, and the brush kind of splatters the paint everywhere. So this is just the way I did it. After it is dry, see here, this is what it looks like. The very bottom doesn't have to be painted, so you don't have to worry about that. Now what you can't see me doing here is I am feeding this through. It's like the inside is like a plastic cage looking situation. So I'm just feeding this dowel through close as I can to the center. And I'm putting both pieces on the dowel rod. I'll show you in a moment. There we go. I've just slid them both down. Ooh, that was fast. And then I'll put this right down in the middle. And press it in there. And then I can fluff out a little bit more with my ferns and decide how I want to position the topiary on the top. Because you can move them up and down. I didn't glue them in place. So I can look at the distance and how far I want them to be. And look, would she be perfect in there? He/she? Yeah. All right. I'm going to take a little Excelsior grass and I'm going to use this to go on the inside to cover up every bit of the foam situation that is in there. And fluffy fluff. Here it is on my back porch, and I just set the bucket down in like a fern wreath. I just set that down on my table. So there's another option if you want to make even bigger presentation. You can put something underneath it or around it. And there's our little bird sitting there. Hey y'all, see the little pillow in the back? A very southern hello and welcome if you are new to my channel. I appreciate you stopping by and visiting. The first project is going to be the wood fern. I've got some little moss rocks here. They came from TEMU. This originally came from Hobby Lobby. Of course, you know I thrifted it, right? You know that. Really cute. I love this fern with the little coils. This is a piece of wood that I, found out and about. Cleaned it up. Be sure you start with a very clean piece. I'm going to use this moss mat and a raw edge wood piece. Some foam. Recycled foam this is. And some Gorilla Glue or any wood glue that you like, and some hot glue. I'll start off by grabbing that piece of scrap wood that I found and just placing this on top of the round. The round is actually going to be the base, and then we're going to put this toward the back and have our little fern arrangement right in the front. This is not difficult to do. Now, if I would have had a good charge on my drill, I would have went ahead and drilled some holes in here to hold it in place. But because I didn't, I'm going to make it work in another way. So I'm going to grab some of this foam, and this was actually in my satellite box, my Starlink box, and I saved it. It's a very compact, clean cut type of foam. Doesn't leave any little scraps or residue flying all around the room. And I'm going to use this as supports in the back. Just because this particular piece of wood has 3 high points, or points where it actually touches on the base, and then it has a curved back. So we're going to use this to help stand it up and hold it in place. So I found the position and where it needs to be. I can go ahead and put those in place. You can use white foam too, because this is going to be covered, so no worries. And this wood round has been colored before, and I've used it many, many times, and that's why it looks like it's been stained, because it has been. Okay, now I've got something for this to lean up against. These 3 points that I'm showing you are the areas that actually sit flush on the bottom. That's where we want to put our wood glue. So I'm going to add some here, here, and then one other point. Now I'm using the little stick because the spout is kind of messed up on my bottle, and I don't want to throw this bottle away just yet, because there's some glue in here that is going to work fine. And this just is a little craft stick that I'm using to put it on. Also, a paintbrush would work fine as well. Then I'll add some hot glue around it to put it in place. For information about the Crafty Cruise Getaway 2025, check my description box below. We would love to meet you there. All right, so now I'm just going to sit it down on the wood, propped against the pieces of foam that we have in the back. You can stack the foam up also. And I am just going to take the glue gun, and almost like when you caulk around a bathtub, I'm going to do that here. I'm going to fill in the space with the hot glue all the way around the front edge, because the back has the foam on it, so we don't need to do it there. And I'll just add, let it dry a little bit, add another row on top of that, another row on top of that, until it is stable, until that wood glue has a chance to set up. This is the next day. You can see I made a kind of a mess back there, but you can see that the hot glue is all dried. Got a good firm hold there. And we're going to start covering up this piece of wood with some of this moss mat. The moss mat and the moss rocks came from TEMU. If you're not a TEMU fan, I don't need to hear about it. You can find your moss mat and moss rocks wherever you want to. And you could probably just make your own moss rocks if you wanted to, or use plain rocks, whatever you like. I like the moss covered stones though. I am going to just take this and tuck this around, almost like tucking it in a few spots and then trimming it up where it needs to be trimmed. This is not a precise kind of thing. I'm just holding it down in place snugly and then picking up and gluing in those areas where it is touching either the back or the bottom. Protect your fingers, because you may be using a lot of hot glue here. You maybe could use a different type of adhesive if you don't, if you're not a fan of hot glue, you could do that. But when you're working quickly and you want to get a project done, hot glue is a pretty good option. Maybe try the Gorilla Glue sticks if you have an issue with the glue. Now I'm going to take my scissors and go around. I'm just putting the blade on the edge of the wood and making sure that it's flat. Then I can lift up and cut that little under piece, which is black, trim it up just a little bit where it needs to be trimmed, and then I'll add some glue working out toward the edge. Now I have a nice even edge, and we can turn around and work on the back. I'm going to put a piece here, trim it down where it will go over the foam, almost like a little hill, and then I will glue that into place. We're going to glue it on the bottom and right over the top of the foam. This is going to make it look like it is glued right on top of the mat instead of the mat being glued around it. Maybe you could try gluing it down to the mat first if you wanted to, but I feel like the wood on wood contact with that, the wood glue is going to be the best way to keep this secure. And it is a rather fragile piece of wood. So, it fell out of a tree during a storm. So we're going to do the best we can to baby it, right? Then I'm just going to go around the edge and just, cut off anything that really, really hangs out and gets in the way. Checking it out from all angles, making sure everything's glued where it needs to be. If you do miss anything when you start adding things later, you can just go back in and add a little bit more, right? We're not going to sweat the small stuff here. Now, please, whenever you get any greenery, no matter where you get it from, if you get it from Hobby Lobby or Walmart or Dollar Tree or TEMU, thrift store, wherever you get it from, please fluff it out. It's likely that it's been squished in a box and it is flat and it's not the way it looks in nature. So if you want your things to be a little more woodland looking and a little more like you had a better thought process, then go ahead and fluff those out. Now, I didn't have long enough staples here, so I'm using some very short nails to go through the stem part of this piece. And then I'm going to flood it with glue to make sure it doesn't move. Okay, now I'm going to take those little moss covered stones and just add those in here, there. Really not a whole lot of purpose to where I put things, except that it did look like it fit there well. There's a little bit of glue still there that's damp, so all I had to do is add some under the front. Once I get it in place, I'm going to kind of play around with the fern, because you know how I am with the fluffing of the greenery and the flowers and bows. I'm a fluffer. And I'm just going to mess around with it and make sure the pretty sides are up, and if there's a wire in it, give it a little, flex it a little bit, give it a little life, a little movement. And then I decided to put the smallest little stone in the back, just for the heck of it. Whenever you have something like a fern or it has a lot of little tendrils hanging off, you can add a little bit of hot glue to hold those things in place in any particular place if you would like. And this is what we have so far, and this is definitely a place you could stop if you would like. I'm looking at it from all angles, making sure everything is stable and it is the way that I like it. And then I'll add another little stone in the front. It's like a small, medium, and large stone in the package. And then I have some little mushrooms that I've used previously, and I have some more left. So I'll use some of these in the project. I'll find my placement and then I'll trim them, doing it at an angle so that it looks sort of like it's growing out the side instead of flat. Everything doesn't have to be flat, right? And then one a little bit shorter, and then I can glue them into place. These particular mushrooms came from Hobby Lobby on a very steep clearance, maybe last year, maybe the year before. I'm not entirely sure. But you can use the little fat ones that you get from Dollar Tree, or just, whatever mushrooms you have. If you're not a mushroom fan, you don't have to use them at all. Now, because there was a gap, I added a little more there just to kind of fill it in like there was a little hill. Which, in your own little universe, your own little woodland area, you get to choose exactly what you want to put and where you want to put it. You can put some rocks in there, some gravel in there, or a fairy. Look at my little fairy. She's so cute. She's a little ginger fairy. And I think she's going to look cute in the little woodland scene. So she can go on top. I'm going to try her in a bunch of areas to see where she's most comfortable. And, of course, most stable, because I don't want her to fall off. And I like the idea of the mushrooms being like a little seat and a footstool. Do you say footstool or ottoman? And are they the same thing? I'm not entirely sure. But I was raised up with the ones that looked like a mustard colored barrel, and it was a footstool. That's what it was. And we loved rolling on it, playing on it all the time. Papa threatened us with a fly flap if we didn't quit. Of course, he never hit us with a fly flap because he would always giggle. But, you know, he also called all of his girls his boys because he didn't have any grandsons. Papa was a stinker. Miss that man. And now I think I like it like this. I think this is a pretty good look, and we can leave it just like this. You know, if you don't want to use fairies, you don't have to. If you have some little woodland creatures, you know, if you have snails, frogs, if you want to go a little bit lighter, you could do butterflies, you could do squirrels, you could do foxes, owls, anything that you like to make it your own. Any way that your little heart desires. Just be sure you do make it your own. The next is going to be a leaf frame canvas. Look at this beautiful print. I love it. It's a bunch of moss covered stones. I'm also going to take a 12 by 16 inch canvas, and the print is a 12 by 16 inch. See? And then this beautiful frame that I thrifted about a year ago. I've just been waiting to get these things out and use them so I could complete my bedroom. I'm doing that forest core look in my room, so these prints are going to be beautiful in there. And I love the leaves. This is such an unconventional frame. It's so pretty though. All right, so I'm going to take the original hanger off because it's going to be oriented in a different direction. I'm going to use Loctite because I've never used it before on something like this. I'm just now learning all the things you can do with it. So I'm just going to add a little of this, and I'm going to spread it out. It's a lot thicker than Mod Podge, and it dries quicker. So I'm trying it out and see what I think, and I will tell you, I had good results with this. Nothing came out. Now the thing is, it's not super tacky in the beginning. You need to put some weight on it, and you will see me do that. So I'm going to put some weight to make sure that it sticks to the canvas. But once you let it sit for a while, it stays there. I'm just going to use a little scrap wood and a couple of little garden stones just to kind of put some weight on there while I work on the other end and the other side. A little flat brush, just a bead about an inch way in, and then I'll just start putting this on here and spreading it out thin. I don't want there to be any little bubble areas in here. I want it to be nice and flat, but I don't have to go all the way behind the print, right? You don't have to go all the way behind. These two prints I got from TEMU, but you can get your prints anywhere you like. All right, so now to work on the frame while the rest is drying, I'm going to use some clear wax and a chippy brush. Of course, the frame has already been cleaned, and I'm going to take that and start working it into the wood. The wood is rather dry and kind of dull looking, and I really want to bring that back to life, give it some richness, put that richness back in there, and I'm going to do that just by using this clear wax. You know when your hands are dry and they just look awful? Some people say they look ashy. They're just, you know, chalky looking. And you put lotion on and then it just immediately changes the appearance. They look so much younger and healthier. That's kind of what this does. It conditions that wood to really bring the life back to it. And so I like to use it in some of my projects. Put that wax on. You can let that dry overnight and then buff it out. If you have any areas that are scratched, you can use a little bit of your antiquing wax to go right over that area and fill it in, and it's as good as new. Yes, I'm very happy with that. So it needs to be set aside, and then like I said, once it's dry, it can be buffed. And I'm going to put my canvas on here. It's just going to kind of float over the back. It's just a little bit bigger than the back, so I should be able to just add some shallow staples here like you see me doing. And then I'm going to put some hot glue on it, and I'll be using some little remnants of ribbon to go right over the top to just, you know, really make sure everything stays in place. Sometimes staples can pop out, right? So now for a hanger on the back, I'll use a sawtooth hanger that I took off of another project. And all you have to do is just find your close to center point and tap that in. And look at this beautiful, beautiful creation. I absolutely love this piece. That frame is just something. It just speaks to my heart with the leaves on it. And that rich wood. Yeah, I hope y'all like this one. It seems so simple to frame a canvas. Next is a canvas sign. So I have another print here, and it is of a creek or a stream with some, of course, moss-covered stones. This is a thrifted sign that I got at Goodwill, but you can see it came from Big Lots, I think, originally. I'm going to take all that stuff off the back, and I'm going to remove this piece. Now, this is just cloth, and you can certainly take the cloth pieces and save them and use them on another project, but I'm just going to use a little utility knife, and I'm going to score down the side all the way up to the side there and trim it up. If you're enjoying this content and this video and other videos I've made, I would love it if you would subscribe to the channel and help me reach my goal of 100,000 by October the 31st. Thank you so much. All right, so now we've got our palette nice and clean. You can see some little glue areas on there in the middle, but you can sand that off if you need to. Run a little sander over it if you need to. For now, I'm just going to leave that alone, and I'm going to grab my antiquing wax and a sponge brush, and in that area that it is going to overlap but not entirely cover, this is wider than 12 inches. It's probably 14 inches, so we need to fill in that space, and I'm going to do that with some antiquing wax on the edge, and I'm also going to take that same antiquing wax and go all over the top and bottom boards here. I'm going to tap a little bit of extra on the edges, and you see that gives it a bit more of a shadow. We'll do the same thing here, and remember, start off with clean pieces, and then I'm going to add a little bit more on the edges just for a little depth and dimension, and right on the outer surface. Now, right on the inside of that board, there's a little area that I need to add to, but I don't want to put too much on to have it interfere with the glue sticking down on the canvas, you know, to the piece. I don't want anything peeling up, so I don't want to get that in the way. I'm just going to use a little skinny brush here to do that. Make sure we don't leave anything bald or uncolored. So here we go with the Loctite again. I'm going to go right inside of the lines where we put that wax on, and then layer just, you know, right over it if I need to. And I'm going to put this down right here. This has already been trimmed up to be the size that's going to fit on the inside. It is about, I think I ended up cutting like 2.5 or 3 inches off, but I cut it on the bottom section of it so my treetops wouldn't be sliced. And then I'm starting on the top, and then we're going to put some on the bottom, and I'm feeling a little more confident this time with the Loctite. I know that it's going to do what it's supposed to do, so I'm just going to go ahead and just slap it on there, right? We're slapping it on. This does not have to be pretty at all. Y'all, who got bad weather yesterday? Oh my goodness, I was a nervous wreck the entire day. I should have got this video finished yesterday, but no, I finished it today because I couldn't think of anything else yesterday but the weather. It was crazy business. Thank goodness I had some friends who just talked me down. Trish and Kay and Kendra, they talked me down. I was just worried to death, and, you know, I was in good hands though, and I knew that. But, you know, sometimes when you're scared, you just don't think straight. Okay, let's get that a little time to dry, right? And then we're going to go over it with some more of that wax. Now for this one, we're going to do some shadowing. We're going to also go right around the edge and sort of blend, because sometimes the edge of a canvas has like a white line around it, and I want that to just go away. I want it to just blend out and go away. So I'm going to use my little sponge brush with that antiquing wax, and I'm sort of moving it, kind of twisting the little sponge part back and forth, because I don't want a pattern to form as I'm doing it, right? If that makes sense to you, if you've ever done like stenciling or whatever, or pouncing around with the brush, I don't want that to make a pattern, okay? So you'll see me kind of twisting it back and forth as I lay it down. Don't worry about areas that get a little bit heavier, because you're going to take a brush just like this and you're going to blend it out. What I'm doing is just kind of blending it. You let it sit there for a minute, you know, and then you're going to blend it out. So that's what you see. I'm dragging a little bit of that wax onto the inside of the picture. I'm also rounding the corners on the bottom and on the top. And then I'm going to very, very lightly go all the way across on the front of this canvas. We did not do this on the first one, right? That one was easy peasy. This one, we're just going to add a little bit of shading and shadowing. This is going to make it a little bit darker, and it's going to make it a little bit richer. But my goodness, y'all, again, with an inexpensive canvas and a thrifted piece, look at this. This is beautiful. You know, of course, that's my opinion, but I think this is a really lovely piece, and it is going to be very loved in my bedroom. Believe me. Yes. The next is a birdhouse flip. I did this birdhouse year before last. I think it was in 2022. I made this. I put it on the candle stand. I did the paint technique and all that with it, which was perfectly fine. It looked great for rustic farmhouse. We're going to change this to give it a little bit more of that woodland look. So we're going to use mosses. We're going to use pieces of wood. Now this wood, I think originally probably came from Target, and then antiquing wax. I'm also going to need some clippers, wood scraps, little pieces of twigs, or like this placemat is a twig placemat. This is going to work perfect. I decided to use this since it's already together. Now, in order to do that, since I know I want to cover around it, I'm going to grab my little Crafty Cruise getaway ruler here, and I'm going to measure around there how wide the birdhouse is all the way around. Then I'm going to measure and lay it down here, and I'm going to measure how much I need here. And then I'm going to cut down. But listen, if you don't have a mat like this, you can just glue regular sticks on there. So don't be too concerned about what I'm doing. But you do need the measurements, right, to know how much to use. Then I'm going to measure from the top to bottom edge, inner edge, to know how tall to cut these. Make sense? So that's what I'm doing here. And then I'll take whatever type of cutter that I have, and I'm going to be using a combination of these little clippers like this, and then my bullnose cutters, which are the blue handle ones. As I go through here, it took me a minute. I'm not going to lie about it. It took me a minute. But once I got it done, I was so happy with it. So we're going to start on the side of the opening. I'm going to lay it down here, and all I'm going to need is some hot glue to put it together. Gorilla Glue is going to be your friend if you want to put this like on a covered porch, which is probably what I'll do, but I really like it. I may leave it in here in my studio so I can look at it. Then you're going to go all the way around, gluing that down, a bead at the top, a bead at the bottom. And I'm just going to cut the little bird piece off here because this is actually going to be a little more of a fairy home rather than a birdhouse. But if you want to keep it as a birdhouse, use the same idea here, but leave your little stand right there and work around it, okay? Can you understand what I'm saying about that part? Okay, it's not going to be a functioning, it's a decorative birdhouse. So I'm taking my antiquing wax and I'm going over what looks like something that would go like in a nautical piece, like that light bleached kind of wood. And I am going to do all of the wood in that antiquing wax, and I'm going to let it dry overnight. You could also use a stain or whatever you would like to use for that. I'm going to take some of these twig pieces that came from Dollar Tree. Got a bag of them. And it's a purchase that I make over and over again because I love to use the wood pieces. But you could cut something out of your yard, you know, you don't have to buy it. I'm going to put a little top piece, and I'm going to use some little bottom pieces. And I'm going to use 3 on the bottom, 1 at the top. It is going to look sort of like steps, which I like, only they're not going to be exactly steps. They'll be more decorative. And then they're going to help cover up that empty spot where we took the little twig out where a bird would stand, right? All right, now I've left enough space in there that I could put something, and believe it or not, this is a napkin holder. I thrift these because they're good for so many things. So when you find one that's not in a set of 4 or more, not a big deal. This is a round piece that works great for a lot of stuff. So I just put that right over the hole. It is the perfect diameter with a little hot glue, and let that dry. Here are the pieces the next day. Nice and richly colored. And these are going to be the shingles we use for the top of the house. So I know I keep wanting to use the word thatched, but that is not correct because we're not actually using like a hay or that type of a product on the top of it. But we're going to put wood on there and we're going to fill in with moss, y'all. This was so much fun. Took a little while, but it was worth it. I love the look. Okay, so I'm going to put some of the pieces where they look kind of broken on the edges. It's going to give it character. So I want to put some of those pieces outward and on the bottom, right? We want those little pieces to show. We want all the imperfections to show as if the little fairy just flew around, and as little pieces were falling off, she added one here, she added one there, until her house was perfect. I'm going to start on the bottom because we're going to overlap each row until we get all the way up to the top. So you can see how that row is going to look. And there's an overhang of about probably 1/2 to 3/4 of an inch. Here it is all the way filled. And then now we're going to go up to the next row and you just overlap. I'm just trying pieces. What you see is me actually just gluing the piece on, but I try each piece before I glue it on to make sure that it is going to be the right size. Keeping in mind that you need to have this still in a conical type shape when you apply them, right? So you're going to go all the way around, and you can see there are long pieces and short pieces and gaps. And I don't mind that. I like that, and I'm okay with that. It makes the perfect little spots for moss to just nest down in there. Okay, we're going to make a chimney. So let's grab another one of those pieces of wood, and we're just going to make one right in the top by hot gluing it in a spot that doesn't have a piece of wood. Perfect. Easy, easy. We're going up to the top, just overlapping and adding all the way up to the top. Again, we're not looking for perfection. We want this to be rustic. We want this to look like, you know, a little random pine cone maybe. Okay, now I'm just taking the little glue strings off of it. You don't have to do this part if you don't want, but I like to get them out of my way because I'm a picker and I'll sit there and pick on them if I don't. So I'm going to take a moss mat and I'm just going to start cutting off strings and strands of it. You can use the loose moss that you get at Dollar Tree, but put on your finger protectors and protect your hands, okay? Be sure you protect your little fingers. And there you go. That's how we do it, y'all. Those little pink finger protectors came from Dollar Tree. So the benefit, one of the many benefits of having moss, because I mean, who doesn't want moss on a woodland piece? If you have any gaps that were left around when you were putting your wood pieces on, you can fill that right in with that moss. I mean, they don't want wind just blowing in through their house. They want to be nice and cozy when it's cold outside. So we're going to use moss, and it's going to fill in the little spots around there that need to be filled in, right? I'm tucking it under there, right up to the top and right up underneath where the lip originally was on this piece. Can y'all think of something you have in the house that you can flip and make something different? I mean, it used to fit my style perfectly, but as my style changed, my needs changed, right? And I need to use this little birdhouse. So I'm just going to go with it, and we're going to change it up a bit. We'll be tucking moss in all on the inside. Find a little space, tuck a little moss. Easy, huh? Find a little space, tuck a little moss. You could actually tuck some leaves in here if you wanted to, little pieces of artificial vines. You could put little flowers in here, whatever you want. You want to add another little bit of personality, some little mini pine cones would be adorable around here. Think of all the possibilities. You know, things don't always have to be something that you always see. You know, we can use our imaginations, right? We can use our imaginations. It's okay. Just because we're not kids anymore doesn't mean we have to get rid of that youthful happiness and joy that we used to have. No, we can have that as adults. And look, I love my little house. Look how cute. And then all the little empty spots where it didn't meet in a perfect point at the top, I just filled it in with some moss and shaped it myself. So now we're going to go right around here with some moss as well. And you can see this moss mat I have over here. This is the favorite moss mat that I have bought. I have used it on many projects and I absolutely love this moss, and I will be ordering more. By the way, if you are interested in any of this moss I have a video that I will link for you where I did the TEMU haul with all this greenery in it, and I'll link it for you so you can look up the information and see what it's called and all that if you'd like to. This is not a sponsored video though, so you know, no worries there. Get your moss wherever you like. You could use Spanish moss, reindeer moss, green moss. If you have colored moss, and because I know you can buy where they dye the moss, you can do that. You can make this as mystical or as natural as you would like. It's just fun to do it. I just envisioning the life of the little fairy who lives here, you know? Or the fairy family, possibly. I'm going to go all over there until that is covered, but it still has a nice opening to easily go in and out of. It looks so snuggly and beautiful and warm and inviting. You know, if you were a little fairy, it'd be a nice little place to hang out. So we're going to do the same thing on the bottom, all the way around. And then I decided we're going to go ahead and color all this as well. You don't have to, but I like the richness of all the wood around it. So we're just going to take a smaller brush so that it fits inside of each one of those little branches, and we're actually coloring what is underneath there as well. So I'm coloring over the thread, the wood, or the little twigs, and then the little house that's underneath there is getting some color too, because the little bristles on this paintbrush allow me to get straight down in there in all those little places. And look at the difference between the woods. You could leave yours however you want. You could even paint this a color if you wanted to. Y'all, I really encourage you to make things your own. I say it all the time, but I really mean it. And you do not have to spend a fortune to buy some boutique pieces when you can most likely make it on your own. I'm going to add a little wax right there on those little wood pieces too to blend it in. This is how the little birdhouse flip looks, with the little chimney and all the beautiful moss and a new roof line. Look at all those little broken edges and pieces, just like maybe this home was from something that was foraged out in the woods. I love this, and I love you guys too. Thank you so very much for stopping by and hanging out with me
First is a
today.
blanket rack.
I'm going to start off with some Kiehl's spray paint in white, some of these little rod holders, and they're metal, some screws, of course, for them, mix match. I'm going to use a dowel rod that is cut in the same length as the wood piece I'm going to use here. And this is a thrifted piece that I got from Goodwill about a year ago. For a long time, I wasn't sure what I wanted to do with it, but then I thought, you know what? It is the perfect size for a beautiful room decor piece. And I attached these myself on the back, these little hooks. So I'm going to use a big fluffy brush, and I'm going to get in here and remove any dust or anything that has settled in this carved piece. These pieces are thick. They are cut very thick. Some of the pieces are actually about an inch high. So got to clean it good. Then I'm going to spray it down with the Kiehl's because there was some type of a varnish or sealer on there that was very shiny. And I'm going to let it dry. And I just left mine out overnight because I was doing it at the end of the day. It's a little bit spotty. My sprayer was a little clumpy. So I'll just be sanding that down just a bit to smooth it out and get those little clumps down flat. I even took a sprayer off of another jar or another bottle of spray paint and put it on there to try to help it out. It was just thick, I think, and it kept clogging up. But then I'm going to wipe all my dust particles away. Make sure that it is nice and dry and flat. Then I'm going to pick a couple of chalk paint colors. And I've got a Barcelona beige and a moss green. I'm going to turn it around so I can work on this part first. And I'm just going to elevate it a little bit with sanding blocks. Then I'll grab a variety of paintbrushes. This is that color of green that I like. Put on my spectacles. And then I'll start painting the bigger sections of the leaves. So this is not the fine detail. Right now I'm just trying to get the paint on there, right? Initially, I thought I would put the paint just on the top layers instead of going underneath. So that's how I started off. That's why I'm kind of tilting the brush in this direction. You can see me kind of, putting all of my attention right on the top of the leaf and not on the back. But I then decided to change it up and do it all over the entire leaf. And for that, you really have to have a careful hand. But I did make a little bit of mess here and there, realizing, of course, that I would be painting over it. So essentially erasing my boo-boos with a little bit of chalk paint. So once I have the green on, I'm just going to dry it. And you can see my little smears and boo-boos in there. Then I'm going to mix a little bit of my Barcelona beige with some of the Java chalk paint to darken it up, just change the color a little bit. And I'm going to mix them together on a little paint tray. This is kind of, this Barcelona beige, it's got kind of a grayish color in it. And I needed it to be just a little bit darker. I thought the combination of these two would be perfect for me to work on my acorn caps. So the acorn cap is the top of the acorn. And it's a little bit different than the color of the actual nut itself. So I'm going to go in there with a brush that's a little bit, thinner, smaller in detail. And I'm going to go over that. You can see now by looking at these leaves that I went all the way around the leaf. This was kind of fun to do. And if you like these kind of crafts, if you like flips, I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel. I'm going to always give you that encouragement you need to up your crafting game. That's right, because I think everybody has a little bit of craftiness in them and creativity. We just have to practice, and we have to be confident in ourselves, right? We have to find something joyous in it. So I also did the branches in the same color that we did the acorn caps. I'm going to dry everything before I move on to a new color. I also painted the acorns in a cream color. And now I want to decide how I want to do this, how I want to do the wood. Now I could have stripped it all down and all that business and used the wood grain, but we're not going to do that for this one. Maybe next time. So I'm going to test out some colors here, and I really do like the lighter color against it. Yeah, I think that's really going to make it pop, and it'll give a little bit of a lighter look when it's hanging up in my room. You could use this on the back porch if you wanted to, a screen room or something like that, and you could hang beach towels on it. You could hang a throw on it. It's really nice in the end, y'all. So hang in with me, okay? All right, so we age things on this channel. I got to do it. I have to do this. It's a must for me. But if this is not something that brings you joy and that you like in your own crafts, you don't have to do it. Let's just make it our own, right? And do whatever it is that you like. I'm just kind of dry brushing now. Pushing that wax up into the bristles is what I did. You saw me pouncing it. I'm going to get a little heavy here, and we're going to fix that. No worries. And I'm going to continue along here. I like to do lighter coats first, and then I get a little heavier if I want to get a little bit heavier. And I'll go around all of my edges of this board, and I'm going to go around the other side too. Now you can't see me do it, so I don't spend a lot of time showing you my hand off screen. And then I'm going to very lightly go in there and kind of warm up that lighter color and give it a little dimension. All right. All the way around, and I'm going to go around the leaves too, and I'll show you how I do that. This is fun for me. Who else likes painting? Do y'all like to paint? I really like it, and it's a fairly inexpensive way to change the look of something completely, right? I mean, really change the way it looks. It's already so different than the piece that I had already. And I like it. Again, I'm going to go light-handed first. I'm going to go all around the sides with this, and then I'll get a little heavier with it. Y'all, the Crafty Cruise getaway is February next year. It is a cruise, and we craft and we spend time getting to know each other. We spend time getting to know other crafters. You know, not everybody in our family gets it, right? Everybody don't understand why we have a stash of goodies that we're constantly digging through. But we do. All of us do. We all understand that. And we all think creatively. So getting together to spend some time working and playing is the perfect way to express ourselves and get to know other people. So hope to meet you on the Crafty Cruise Getaway next year. And by the way, our special guest teacher is going to be Sammy from Unicorn Dust Designs. And y'all know you love Sammy. So be sure that you hop on, get yourself registered, and come meet us all. Okay, so I'm just going down with a smaller brush. And this is actually a brush that comes from Dollar Tree, you know. And I'll go in all those little spaces that I couldn't reach. And I'm continuing along. Now, why am I showing you every bit of this? Because every bit of this matters. If you look at your piece and you say, mine don't look like that, I want to show you exactly what I'm doing. So you have the chance, if you like the look, to do it that way. Now, if you get a little heavy-handed and it dries, once it dries, just go over it with a little sander. Just buff it a little bit in those areas. You can see on the bottom, I've already done it. Now we're going to put these curtain hangers, I guess that's what you want to call them. And we're going to use these to hold the pole. I've already painted the pole in a Java color. I'm going to leave these holders the same color they are because they're perfect. I'll be using 3. I marked them off on the board to see where I'm going to put them. And then I will add some little dots so I know exactly where to drill. I want to put a little pilot hole in there first. This is just easier for me. You know, easier for me to do it this way. Less chance of your wood splitting. Although I do think this was oak, so maybe it wouldn't split. It's pretty strong wood, right? It's a hardwood. Do y'all like that? Do you like that green? I think this is perfect for summer. And I could always go back if I want to in fall and change the color of this with some paint and make it a fall piece. You know, you could do this all the time. You could really keep this one relevant in your house all year long. You don't just have to use it in your bedroom though, or on the porch. You could use it in the front room. If you don't have a blanket ladder, or maybe you don't have the room for a blanket ladder, something like this you could put on your wall. Yep, perfect. Now we're going to put the other 2 on. Don't be disturbed with that silver piece because we're going to take some of that Java paint and dot right over the top, and it's going to fade out. You won't even know we used something different. Now to keep that pole in place, since it's too small to screw in there, I'm just going to use some of that double stick mounting tape or nano tape or alien tape, whatever you want to call it, to hold this pole in place, because I have had very good luck with this. You could also put finials, screw finials on the end of your pole if you wanted to, but I like it the way it is. Look at that. I love that. And if you feel like you want something more secure than the type of hangers that I have here, you can go ahead and use a different type of hanger on the back of your wood. So what if you don't find a piece like this with the, you know, the engraving in it? Why don't you just get a plain 2x4 or whatever type of wood? I guess it would be a 2x6, right? Whatever, I don't know my measurements, but a flat board that's long, cut it, and then you could use stickers on it. You could freehand something on it. I mean, you know, there's so many options. Just get the inspiration, right? We don't have to do it just like me. But this is just to give you an example. If you put a throw on it, or if you wanted to use it for decor, you could put some type of a swag on it. You could put some type of a decorative piece on it. You could put a hook and hang purses from it. But I just used the little wall hooks and stuck it into my space there and then hung it from that, and it didn't move. It worked perfectly. So I hope you like this piece. Come see my new videos on Monday and Thursday at 6 p.m. I'll see you in the comments. The next is a fairy door. Paintbrushes, of course, in a variety of sizes. I'm going to be using my cutters. Use some wire cutters. This is a thrifted wreath that I have. Love the coloring in it. And it is like a vine wreath. This is a door. It's a Halloween piece from Target, but it is a thrifted piece. Some Barcelona beige, some Java, and some black Craft Wise paint from Dollar Tree. And then string lights. These are some little fairy lights. A variety of little, this came out of a potpourri bag, y'all. I mean, really. You can find it anywhere, right? Some stones out of my driveway. And some moss. Any moss you want, any coloring you want, you can get moss at Dollar Tree. I'm going to start by just taking this hanger off because I need to paint, right? I'm going to put the screw in the back so I don't lose my pieces and set it aside. I'm going to lightly sand over here. Just kind of get that shine off. It has a little bit of a shine to it. This is just my preference. You can go over it with chalk paint. You don't have to worry about it. I want to show you a paint technique for this, and then of course, you know, I'm going to make it my own and do something different. But not everybody has the same supplies, right? And their stash. So just take the inspiration from it. Okay, so be sure you always wipe off the dust. And you can see my rag's turning purple. That's why you want to do that. You put paint on there, it's going to muddy it up, right? You don't want that purple in there if you're going to make it look woody and woodland. I'm going to put down the chalkboard paint and go all over my door. Because I'm not going to use this as a Halloween piece. This is actually going to be a fairy door, right? And I love that it's freestanding, y'all. That's a big old bonus. So I'm going to paint all of it. I'll also paint the back. Then I'm going to start with a little bit of the Java paint, and I'm just going to pack it into the brush, push it up into the bristles really well. See? See how it's moved up into the bristles? Push it in there. Kind of make sure it's a little bit lighter. You won't be able to see it too well on here because it's against that black, but hang with me. You will see as I begin to build the color up. So do you just go in full force and just slap the paint on there, or are you like me? Do you take your time? Do you kind of build it up a little bit at a time? It takes a little more time to do it this way, but I think the payoff is worth it. So now you can see that there's some brown. You see it now? And we're going to let that dry. Definitely let it dry completely before we put our next layer of paint on. I love my heat tool. It makes my projects go along a lot faster. So if you got a blow dryer or something that you can use, go ahead and grab that. It's worth it. If you're a new crafter, I really do recommend you get something to dry your pieces. It's going to save you a lot of time and aggravation. Now with a smaller brush, I'm going to grab that lighter color, that Barcelona beige, and I'm just going to streak it just a little bit, like when you see a tree that's got streaks on it. It's almost like we're making our little fairy door kind of camouflaged, right? As if it would be in a tree or in a stone wall somewhere. All right. Now I'm going to do it around the sides. Once I've used most of the paint off the end, I'm going to blend it a little bit. Lightly blend it. If you get too much, see, y'all can see my gray hair growing out. I'm so proud. It's come a long way and I'm loving it. If you get too much on there, let it dry and then go back over in the brown. See, like I'm doing here, I went right back over that lighter color just a little bit. That's a dry brush, by the way. It doesn't really have any extra paint. I didn't load any extra paint onto it. All right. So that's what you do if you paint it. But look, I've got some bark here from a pine tree. It smells wonderful. I've had it and it is dry and it has been aside for probably a year and a half now. I've had this piece. I love it. I'm going to break this into pieces. There's no bugs, no critters, nothing like that, y'all. Don't be alarmed. And there are many ways to prepare your pieces before you use them in crafting. You just need to look it up, Google what you need to do, because there's a bunch of different ways, a bunch of different of opinion when it comes to that. I'm going to break this into pieces because I'm going to sort of patch this all over the door. Some of these pieces are a little bit round, some of them are flat, some of them are longer, some are short. I'm just going to do this kind of like a puzzle, but my intention is to leave cracks and spaces in between every piece. I don't want them in there where they are bumping up against each other necessarily, because there's something else we're going to do here to really give it a woody look, a little forest woodland look, if you will. And I know the whole fairy door thing is not for everybody. Y'all just get the inspiration. This could be like a little mouse house, you know, if you don't do the fairy thing. I think fairies are playful, but, you know, if you don't want to do that, that's fine. Maybe a little squirrel or a raccoon lives behind this door. Think of it that way. Now I'll use some hot glue, and you'll see me switching between my two glue guns here, whichever one's got glue ready to go. That's why I do it this way. There's really no rhyme or reason. See here? Switched it up because I needed to reload it. And I'm going to add my glue, and then I'll just place it down in the little areas. You can lay it out first to decide where you want to have your pieces. That usually works best because they're ready to go. But you can move things around. Now once I get close to the area where the door hanger is, I'm going to go ahead and replace that so that I have definitely allowed room for it. And you can see with this, with the tree, even looking at these pieces here, that some of it's gray, some of it's lighter brown, and some of it's a darker color. So that's why we do all the dimension with the paint. That's why we kind of fake it with our paint, right? Nothing complicated or too difficult to do. Just takes a little confidence sometimes, a little confidence, a little support, right? Because even as adults, we still feel like we need approval for whatever reason. I guess we never really grow up, do we? We're always still going to be that kid at heart to some extent. You know, I am, and I'm 51. So if a piece breaks off, it's not a big deal. Really, it isn't. I just end up gluing that piece back on. All right. You're just going to keep on doing this until you get all the pieces that you need. I actually put some pieces on here too that are going to overhang a little bit. And I do cut those off to make them nice and flat, so not a problem. Now I'm using this not to have anything to do with drying anything, but it helps to get rid of the glue strings. So that's what I'm doing here, just kind of cleaning it up a little bit. It's just my preference. You don't have to do the sides. Okay, now, so far so good. We're going to take that wreath, which is almost the same size when it's stretched out as the door, and I'm going to cut it in half. You can use any type of tool you want to do this. You may even have some utility scissors you can use. There's wire in here that holds that wreath together. I'm just going to wrap it back onto the wreath to hold the greenery in place. And I'm going to flex out this to kind of make it a little bit softer so we can conform it to the sides of this door. I love this look, and I love the color of that greenery. It's almost it's a warm green for one thing, which is definitely my preference. But it almost looks like it's transitioning into fall somewhat. And I'm telling y'all, my heart is in fall. It really is. So you can see, you can bend that vine, and it does have a wire which helps it too. And you can get that movement in there so that you can push it against the sides and then hold it in place. Okay, now I'm trying to mimic that arch, that point in the top. It is going to be worth you stretching it, playing around with it, right? Because it's going to be easier for you to get it glued in place or whatever way you want to attach this on here. I initially thought about using wires, so when you see the silver wires on there, don't be alarmed by that. They are something that I pull off, so don't pay attention to the wires, okay? I decided to test my double stick mounting tape for this. By the way, this video is not sponsored in any way for anything, okay? I just use it a lot. And if it works for me, I figured it may work for you just as well. I'm going to go down the sides and the top with this mounting tape, and I'm going to use it to help hold this in place. Now you can see it takes a minute. If I would have laid it flat, it would have been fine, but I wanted you to be able to see what I was doing. I'm taking this fine wreath and shoving it, just pushing it and holding it into that nano tape. All right, then I'm going to use some clips to help me hold it in place. And I'll grab my glue gun, and I'm going to go right between where the wreath is and the sides are on this door, just to make sure everything holds in place. You can just use hot glue. You can just use nano tape, whatever works for you, because it may be a little different. You know, I'm going to hold it tightly on there for a few minutes until the glue sets up and helps that nano tape hold it in place. I'm going to unwrap my lights. If you're curious about the lights, I use the lights from TEMU. I get them in a 10-pack. They have a little bitty pack on the back, which I love. They're even smaller than the little boxes that go on the bottle lights, you know, the little cork lights. They also have 3 different settings: a fast flash, then a blink, and then solid. So I'm going to turn my lights on. I just use some nano tape to hold it in place. And I'm going to use this to kind of twist around a little bit around the greenery. I really don't want the silver to show. You could also paint that wire, but not the light, obviously. And you can let it dry and then twist it in. That would really cover it up. But I have found that the thickness of this greenery is really going to help, you know, keep that from showing. Little dots of hot glue here and there are going to help also to hold it in place where we want it. And I'll just go around and around, burning my finger because I didn't protect it like I should have. You saw that, didn't you? My snatch away there? Yes. Bad girl. Should have had my finger protectors on. Y'all, please put them on. I was so excited about doing this, though. Wasn't even thinking right. You know when you get it in your head and you're just like, oh, I know what I want to do. I know what I want to do. That's where I was when I wasn't being safe. But you be safe, okay? Thank y'all so much for coming by my channel. Whatever brought you here today, if I was recommended by a friend, if I was on somebody's Facebook page, if I just popped up in the feed, thank you for coming by, and I hope that you enjoy and find some inspiration in what you see here on my channel today. Okay, so then I'll glue it in place, and I had a lot extra left, so I thought, hey, let's give them some porch decor. So right here on the stoop, I'm going to take that rest of that wire that I had just kind of wound around my fingers till I decided what to do with it, and wrap it around this little, so I want to say it's a thistle. This is probably not what it is, but this little prickly piece here. I think it's very nice. Kind of like that it's bleached. I'm really not mad about that. Again, this was in a potpourri bag. I'm going to wrap it around and tuck it inside. And I like the idea of them having a little lighted piece on the porch. And look, have this little wood vase that I thrifted, and it's gonna be perfect. We're gonna put it in a pot. I'm just gonna take the brush that I didn't add any paint to. This is just what's left in that brush. I'm gonna dirty up this pot, give it a little bit of a wood look. Well, you know what I mean by wood look. It is wood, obviously, but an aged look on the top too. And then look, we can put it right in that pot. Oh, she's a fancy fairy. Yes, she is. She's got her stuff in order. She's got her life together. But you know we're not done here, y'all. Hang with me, because we're not done. Gluing it down. We're going to glue the little tree in there. It's going to help kind of cover up the battery pack. But we will cover that up with moss. So, there's a couple of ideas here. I've got a couple of different colors of moss, and I decided I want this one because it looks a little warmer. I'm going to take that and run the glue right down the spaces between the bark. I'll just tear it with my hands and poke it in here. For the love of Pete, protect your fingers, y'all. I'm a bad example in this video, huh? I'm sorry. Do what I say, not as I do. Isn't that what we tell our kids? Yeah. So we're just going to add glue down each of those little trenches and use a stick and push the moss right down into there. To me, this looks like, you know, a little more realistic as far as fantasy goes. I love it. And I love moss very much. Moss and bark and mushrooms and all that good stuff. And you'd be proud to see that I didn't use any mushrooms in this piece because not everybody likes the mushrooms. I'm going to press it down in all those areas and make sure that I don't have any empty, hollow looking spots in between. So who's enjoying summer? Y'all enjoying it so far? I'm seeing that it is very stormy all across the United States. There's some weird weather stuff happening. And I also watched a show, I think it's called Ryan Hall. It's Ryan Hall, y'all. I watch him all the time for storm information. He is always on the mark. And his prediction is that the hurricane season is going to be a very active one. So I live close to the coast. Not really looking forward to that, but we do have a storm cellar, so we do have safety if we need it, you know. And when you live in the South, it's just kind of understood that you may as well be prepared all year long because you never know what's going to happen. So I'm going to fluff it out here. Look at my fingers. The stuff is dyed, like the moss is dyed to preserve it, and it just was everywhere. My fingers were just covered. But you know, I'm always covered paint, so it's not that big of a deal. So I'm going to take the little clumps of the moss here. I'm going to work with the clumps. I like the idea that it's in big chunks like this. I think it looks nice. I think it looks nice and fluffy where the little fairy can come and she can sit on her little patio area or her little front area there, if you will, and relax. And her little toes will be very comfy and cool in that moss. Moss is cool. Yes, it is. Okay, so now we have a little stoop done outside of her house. And I can take a few stones and just kind of, you know, give a little extra detail, like the beginning of her walkway. So I'm going to add just a few of those pieces right there. You can use the nice stones that you get from Dollar Tree in the bags, like the flat black stones. Those are really nice too. You can use those if you want. Then I'm going to take some Spanish moss that I have used in another project, and I'm just going to place here and there and just kind of wind it around in there for a little bit more of a convincing look, I guess. And I like the idea of the gray moss with the gray stones down there and the gray in the wooden door. All of this just looks camouflage to me. It all just looks, I don't know. It's pretty. I think it's pretty. So now I have the wreath where it's further down on one side than the other. So I'm going to put a couple more of those pieces on there, and I'm going to kind of hide the fact down there in the right corner that it's shorter on that side. And I'm going to add these little pieces here and there all the way throughout the greenery. You can see how I'm done it here. I like the texture of these. They're really nice. Some of them are kind of flat. Some of them are open. Some are long. Then I'll take these little pod pieces, whatever these are, and I'll add these. They look like flowers a little bit. And I like the look of it. I think that's so mystical, and oh, look at it lit up, y'all. I just really like this. This is so fun to me. I even took a little moss and wrapped it around the little tree that's in the pot. Just fix that up there. I really like this. I think it's great for summer, but also transitioning into fall with the warmer tones. I think it's nice. And I hope you like it. I hope you get inspired. This could be your little rabbit or squirrel or raccoon home. Whatever you like, just make it your own, okay? That's the important thing. Fairy picture. I'm going to take a little bit of this garland. It's like a wire with leaves. Some sticks. This came from a placemat that I thrifted. Used it before. Love it. These are two of the stakes that came out of the Dollar Tree signs. Paintbrushes. And then here is that beautiful picture. I got this from TEMU. I love her. She's beautiful. She's woodland. She's giving me happy vibes. We're going to use something as a backing. This is sort of almost like metal in here somewhere. We're going to use that. You can use Type Bond. You can use E6000. You're going to need like a permanent type glue and your hot glue. Now, I don't want the white matting on here, and it's a good thing that this edging is a little too big anyway. So I'm going to just take my knife and I'm going to line up my ruler against the edge, and I'm going to cut right through here all the way down to the end and just remove that white edge completely off of there. By removing the white edge from both sides, this is going to fit perfectly onto that back piece that we have here. Now, this is not going to be a framed piece in the way that we normally frame our pieces. This is going to be something that's a little easier. So if you don't thrift or you don't have a good thrift store, and all you can get is a print and some type of a sign from Dollar Tree or Dollar General that's the same size, then you can just use that as a backing instead. I want to show you that you do have other options, okay? And I think it turns out really pretty, but you can be the judge of that. So now it's a perfect fit. I start by pulling this off, and y'all, no, it doesn't want to pull away. I did use the heat It didn't want to pull away then either, I guess because of the material it's made out of. So I thought, let's do the trick that people do on wallpaper. I'm just going to score this all over the back. And I mean all over the back. So that when we spray our water on there, it can easily be lifted away, right? You don't have to do this. You know, you can leave that on there if you want, or you could just paint over it. But here, options, right? Options. So I sprayed it with some water. I'm rubbing it with my hand, and the water goes into all of those little cut areas. You can see the color changing. That's where the water is getting down in there. And you can pull those pieces off. They'll start to lift. Like when I was rubbing it with my hand, there are pieces that are starting to lift, and you can just grab those pieces and pull them off. All right, so I scraped the whole back down. It's nice and flat now. I'm going to take this Java and go all the way around the edge, because it's still got that color on the edge, and we're not going to be covering up the sides. We're not wrapping the sides. So I don't want to see any of that pink and green on this piece. That's why we're doing this. And you be sure you let it dry. You don't have to be super neat about it, you know, but let it dry. And then I decided to use my super glue, and I do have a little brush here, or my E6000 rather. And I am going to put some little streaks of this on here. Easy enough, right? Around and around and around we go. And it takes a little while for this to dry, so that makes it convenient for me to get that brush and smear it all out. I'm going to just take that brush and go all the way to the edge and downward. This is how we are going to attach the print to the top of this sign piece. Now, the white is still on there for this because it's going to be covered. You're not even going to see that white piece. Once I get it where it needs to be on the board, nice and flush, I'm just going to use my hands to push it down. Now, I've never used E6000 on a canvas before, so I wasn't entirely sure, but you'll see what I mean in a minute. So I'm just going to use the stakes to hold this flat. This is like a metal type material, and it is flexed a little bit, so it's not completely flat, and I want this to dry. So by putting the stake on there with the glue, it's going to hold it in place. Now for me, I just left it overnight because I was waiting for paint to dry on another project anyway, so I just left it overnight. I'm going to do the bottom the same way, and then I decided to go ahead and do the sides. Don't do the sides, y'all. You can actually see the E6000 through there when it dries. I was able to kind of not bring as much attention to it, but you could still see it. But hey, you know what? You live and you learn. And by me showing you my mistakes, I can tell you for sure how you don't want to do it, because you'll see what I'm talking about here. But I think in the end, it's totally fine. Now I'm going to press that down and go all the way down, making sure that I don't have any air bubbles or whatever. And you can see here on the left side, you can see that E6000 through there a little bit. So I'm using my clips again. Same thing here. Once it has been all night, I'm going to come back and take that off. And you can see here on the left side too, where it's a little darker. Ugh. Well, it is what it is, right? Okay, so now I'm going to take those stakes that we used as a tool, and now we're going to use them to make our little top and bottom frame pieces. So look, y'all got a new toy. Somebody recommended to me to treat myself to these, and I did, and thank you very much. I can't recall your name right now, but I thank you for recommending this, because this is a game changer right here. Game changer. Where have you been all my life? Right on the line. It bites right through there. Again, not sponsored. I'm just loving these. I am loving these. Yeah. Okay. Enough playtime. So it makes such a smooth cut, except right at the bottom, it's a little bit rough. So I'm just going to sand that, right? Because I want my look to be nice and smooth. It just takes a second. Perfect. That's great. Do both pieces the same way. On the back, where I pulled these signs off of this, I am going to just sand it down so that it is nice and flat. I don't want it to have any little bucked up areas. I want it to have a nice flat surface to stick down to our print. Just gonna get the top layer of that paint off while I'm doing it, because anything shiny doesn't really want to stick that well. So we'll just take the shine off, clean the dust off of it, and then I'm going to paint it the green color. I want this to blend in just a little bit. So I got my beautiful, is it Spanish moss or moss? Well, whichever one. You know, you saw the bottle. So I'm just going to go over that. You don't have to do the back side. You know, if you want to save your paint, you can. But be sure you get all the edges for your piece. And then I'm going to use a little bit of E6000 and some hot glue to put these pieces down. Both of them need to be completely dry, of course. You know, I use the tops off of these Dollar Tree steaks all the time. But I save my steaks for purposes like this, right? Not everybody has room to save everything you get, but if you do have a little bucket or something you can toss them in, you can use them for stuff like this. So now I'm going to use my clamps to hold them in place. I'm making sure that it's about, I don't know, a third of the way down that I'm adding the glue to. It's too hard for me to get it even on the front side, so I decided to flip it over to do it this way. So there I have my two different glues. And if you're new here, I'm using two glues because the hot glue dries quickly and will hold it in place while it allows time for the E6000 to dry permanently. All right, so same thing here. We're going to clamp it all down. While everything is drying, I am going to grab a little bit of wire. This is just a brown wire I thrifted, but you can get like a jute top wire from Dollar Tree that you can use for this as well. I'm going to take 3 for the top, 3 for the bottom. I'm going to cut off a piece of that wired twine, I guess you could say, that is about 6 inches, 8 inches longer, and I'm going to use that to make bundles. I'm going to wrap the end of it and then wrap it around to the bottom of where our little branches are. No rhyme or reason to this. I just thought it would be an interesting look. Same thing here. You want to cut it longer because you have to have room to twist it around. And just twist, twist, twist. If you can get your twist equal and that's how you want it, great. If not, you don't have to do it that way. If you don't find the jute, you could just use wire. Or if you don't have wired jute, just use jute. You know, we're just connecting them. I just like the idea that this looks like a vine. Then I'm going to take this, and I got this from TEMU also. But you can get the little pit berry if you want to use pit berry from Dollar Tree, the little berry vines on the kind of rustic looking thing. You can use that instead if you want to. Or you can hot glue greenery down or moss down to yours. This just makes it easier. I'm going to twist it around, and now it looks like vines and greenery. It's just really pretty to me. And I like the look of it. It looks woodland, it looks beautiful, and I think from a forest decor room, it's going to be great. Now, I had started off saying that I wanted my room to be like a dark academia or like a dark cottage core, but as I started decorating, something started coming out that was more of like an enchanted forest type look. So that's what it is. That's what it's turning into. Now there's still some pieces that I would like to thrift rather than spending money on in my room. So y'all stay tuned. There will be a video, there will be a reveal and a room tour once I get it complete. But several of these pieces that I have been thrifting and that I have flipped, yeah, they're going to be in there. In the videos that I've been showing you, several of the pieces will be in there. I obviously can't use all of them, but there will be several in there. So if you're interested to see what I actually use in my room, then be sure that you hit the notification bell when you're subscribed, because otherwise you're going to miss it, right? You might miss it. Now I'm just going to attach this down with hot glue, use clamps to hold it in place. Same thing, it kind of bows up just a little bit, and you want it to be nice and flat for that hot glue to stay on it. If you don't have clamps, take something you can use as weights to hold it down. Now I'm going to go over that print and put some antiquing wax on it. I'm going to go to the top rather, and just kind of drag it down just a little bit. And don't worry, it will be blended out. No problem, no problem. That's the good thing about antiquing wax, is it's movable. You know, you can move it around. And say you get too much on there and it gets kind of muddy looking and you don't like it at all, while it's still wet, get a baby wipe or a wet rag, just wipe it off, right? Once you get it on there and it dries, I don't know that you could actually remove it. I think it's permanent, but you know, I can't say that for sure because I've never tested it. All the areas that are gray in the background, I want to warm up and give the impression of shadow, because I really like that. You know, in a dark forest, there's lots of light and shadow, and you see the difference in the textures. And by doing it this way, I have also learned that it gives it more of a cameo effect. So the focus is actually on the little fairy here. She's precious. She is deep in thought. I wonder what she's thinking about. What do you think she's thinking about? She's thinking about how she's going to spend her day. Do I take a walk down to the pond and dangle my feet into the water, or do I go play with the butterflies, or fly with the birds? So many options. So many options. So I'm going to also put some wax over the branches there and also on top of the vine. And yes, while I was doing this, I did not have a fully dried piece, so you can see it wiggling just a little bit, but you know, you could do this before you put it on if you want. And then we're going to make a hanger. And I thought, well, why don't we just use the same wired pieces that we used to make our vines? I'm just going to fold it in half and then flex it into almost an L shape. And then we know where our hanger will be. We know how it's going to hang. If you don't get it exactly centered, not a problem. I'm going to flip it over, grab my hot glue, put it in there. I put a piece of scrap cardboard on top of it to hold it in place. Protect your fingers, y'all. I was terrible in this video about protecting my fingers. What was I thinking? We're going to do the same to the other side, and then you're going to take some craft paper or whatever type of paper you have and cover up the back to make it nice and neat. Here she is in all of her glory. Absolutely beautiful little fairy. Look at her little shoes, y'all. And she has a little tattoo. It's so cute. She has little tattoos on her feet. That is adorable. Or maybe they're not. Maybe that's her birthmark. Who knows what that is. I'm loving her. She makes me feel good about all my bad hair days. She's just letting it go wild. Forest wild. Forest hair don't care, right? The first is going to be a garden ornament. I have got some heirloom white paint. This is some spray paint we're going to use first, so that all of these pieces that I have here that I have thrifted will be about the same base color. This is a jar lid. I don't know what that other little white piece was. And then this is a beautiful little table leg. I'm going to use wood glue and hot glue for this. After they've all been just, not even a full coverage coat, you know, I'm just going to spray them down so they pretty much match. I'm going to start figuring out how I'm going to piece them together. Now, of course, I already did this beforehand to make sure they would work on this project, but this is just to give you an idea of how I'm going to put them together, so that if you have pieces you can use, you can make your... I'm going to use wood glue in the inside part of this square, and then I'll use some hot glue around that and put it right down in the middle of this candle lid. Then I had mixed it up with this stick, so I'm just gonna go ahead and not waste it. I'm gonna go ahead and tap that on there too, and then I'll add some hot glue to that and put the next piece on. You don't have to mix your glues. You can just use wood glue if you want to. The hot glue saves time for me. Give it a minute or two to set up, and then you can flip it over and work on the top pieces. Glue, glue, glue. You don't want to put too much glue though, because you don't want it to be gushing out around the outside of it, because it's kind of sloppy and then you got to clean it all up. So, you know, just be careful to begin with. Save yourself some time. So I'm going to take my plaster chalk paint, use whatever color you like for this, and I am going to go over this entire thing.
These are circular pieces for the most part, except for the square section there on that the leg. So I try to follow the circle with the paint. Whichever way you choose to do it, just kind of be, you know, chalk paint's kind of thick, so you want to make sure all the strokes are in the same direction. Make it nice and smooth and neat. I chose a lighter color for this garden piece because we're going to be adding decorative paint to it, and I want to make sure that I can see every bit of that. So we suppose that the little people who have this in their garden, that when they bought it, it was pristine and a beautiful solid color, but we're going to age it as though it is in an old garden that has been there for a long time. You know I like to do my aging. So I'm going to take this lightweight spackling, and you can just use this to fill in any cracks, because y'all know that hot glue is a little bulky, so you got to work really quick with it, and most of the time it still takes up a little space and you don't get a nice smooth finish. So if you want to, you can just use this to smooth it out. You can use caulk, silicone, whatever you choose to use. And you can totally not do it if you want it to look like it was handmade. I'm just going to do it between all the pieces that fit together. I'm going to put it in kind of thickly, and then I'll wet my finger and just wipe it back off so it's nice and smooth. You can still see cracks in mine. I do not care. We're going to be covering it up with paint. Be sure that it is fully dry. Okay, I'm going to take these little half rounds and use these to cover up that lip on the bottom. That little section right there on the bottom, that is the gap, is where there was like a rubber gasket to hold the candle top in the candle. So I pulled that piece off, and then, you know, I could have just left it, but just to give you an idea, if you have a candle top like that, you can fill it in. You can go over it with a piece of ribbon if you want to, or you can use the caulking or the spackling to go in there and fill it up. All right, so I'm gonna get some green here, and this is I think maybe it's ivy. I'm not completely sure what color green that is, but it's a nice dark color, and I wanted something that's going to look like moss. First, I'm going to go over it with my antiquing wax. If you don't have antiquing wax, you can water down a little bit of brown paint and use that to do your aging. I like to build mine up, so you're going to see a lot of painting with this project. Some people say that they don't know what someone is doing if they go too fast on the project or if they skip a lot. So for those people, I am going to give you a little more of a look. Now, I'm not going to show you the entire thing because the video would be 2.5 hours long. And it's not a compilation, so it doesn't need to be that long, right? But you can see here what I'm doing. Same thing with the waxing, and when I'm aging it, I try to respect the direction that the wood is already in. So if there would be a wood grain, you know, you go up and down. All the areas that would collect dust and grime, you want to go over those spaces. So in between each one of these little rounded sections. Y'all, if you're enjoying this video, if you like to see the transformations that I do on my channel, please subscribe to the channel. It's free. You know, and it helps me tremendously. Besides, the more people that I have that follow me, the more opinions that I have, keep me inspired to keep going and giving you the types of things that you like to watch on this channel. So I hope that you're satisfied and that you'll give me a thumbs up as well. And I thank you very much. Now, I'm just going to go over this, and you know, if you choose, whether you choose to leave it a cream color, or you could do this like a silver with aging. You could do this any way you want. It's totally fine to do it that way. If you want to age it like this and leave it just like this, you can also do that. If the paint techniques that I'm going to be using on here are just not your thing, you can glue some moss on here. You could put some florals around it. You could put maybe a vine of ivy around it. You know, whatever works in your home and brings you joy. Just make it your own. That's what it's all about. So now I'm making sure that that is dry before I start with anything else. Here's that beautiful green color. I've just got this on a bath sponge that I got from Dollar Tree. It was one bath sponge, and I've torn it into different sections and pieces. And when I use it, I'm rotating it and turning it around and around and around. Now you can see here that I can't get right next to that space. You see there's like a little gap in between there. All I have to do is kind of rotate that and push it with my finger. Put your gloves on if you're concerned about your hands, because y'all, finally, if you will notice in this video, I have nails again. I got my artificial nails on in February or the end of January, and they just chewed my nails up. They destroyed my fingernails, but finally I have shiny, white, strong, healthy fingernails again. I don't know how long it'll last with the way I like to craft, paint, and sand stuff, but we'll see. All right, so it's beginning to look like it's got some moss on the bottom. I'm going to continue around here. Just so y'all know, if this lived in the South with me, it would definitely be covered in moss. Definitely. It is so humid here. Now, I don't know about the weather in France, so if you're from over there and you know, you can let me know. But I look at this, and you know what else I was thinking? I was thinking about that, what is it called? Spooky Southern, or Southern, Haunted Southern, or something like the Haunted South. I don't know. There's like a line of Halloween decor that is out right now at one of the craft stores. And I thought, wow, this would really fit in with that. So yeah, I could definitely go a little bit on the spooky side with this, and you could definitely use that in that decor as well. Okay, so we're going along here. This is layering the paint, layering it with the wax, not a problem. I've done this. This is not a problem. Everything is going to stick. I'm going to continue around and just put that green paint where I think maybe wax would settle, where pollen would settle. You know, we got that green pollen that gets on our cars too. My car right now is supposed to be a gray color, but it looks like it is green. It's been dusted in green fairy dust. All right, between my layers, I'm going to dry it. You can just let yours dry overnight if you don't have a tool or a hair dryer or a fan, you know, something you can use like that. And then I'm adding more dimension by going back in with layering that wax around there. Now you'll see that there are some areas on here that look a little too bright and clean. Do not worry about that. You know how we do. That is going to be taken care of. And I think the end result you are going to be very pleased with. Well, I hope so anyway. Okay, so I'm going to continue around here. If I feel like I want to add more green, I'm just going to add it. I'm doing a lot of blending with the exact same brush. This is a Dollar Tree brush. It can get down in those spaces. It's kind of stiff, so it has that little spacious pouncing, I guess you could say. It's not like a solid type coverage, but it looks like little dips and rises in moss. Okay, so now I'm just taking the same brush that's got the green and the wax on it, and I'm just taking the remnants of that wax that's left on there and just dirtying it up. I'm just going over there, dusting it up. You know, somebody mowed the yard and stuff got flung all over the place, right? We know how it goes. We know exactly how it goes. And look at it. I wanted to give the illusion that this was one piece, and I think that it works. I think that this looks like it could be manufactured just like this, or, you know, done by hand. I think it looks good, and I hope that you think it looks good too. Look at that. Look at that. Oh my goodness. Will y'all help me get my silver play button? It is so easy. You don't have to do anything hard. All you gotta do is subscribe to my channel.
To start off with, we are going to make a book fairy. Yes, fairies again, y'all. Okay, I ordered these from TEMU. I ordered 2 of them, so we're going to do 2 projects. This is what they look like when you get them from TEMU. They are just made to sit outside in the yard. I'll try to find that link for y'all and put it in the description box. This is not sponsored. You're going to need some type of a moss mat or some moss, some foam, sanding block, some tape, something to cut with, some clippers. We're going to need some flat white paint or chalk paint. And then we're going to take the chalk paints here in relatively similar shades. And this is Thrifted. This is a book stack box. Love it. I've had it for a long time. Finally decided what I want to do with it. We're going to use mushrooms. I've got these foam mushrooms that I've had for a while. I've done more projects with those. And then these I ordered from TEMU, little minis. I have these scraps right here. This is from a lovely friend who donated some ribbons and some greenery. And then I'm going to start off with my sanding block and just go over these. Some of these areas on these books are raised, And I want to make them, you know, relatively flat. I want the box to not be the main focus. See how yucky that is? So I've sanded most of it, tried to get most of the shiny off. Not going to focus on the pages. We're going to leave that as is. I'm going to start with the moss green color. I think this is Spanish moss. And I just decided to put this one on the bottom. So I'm going to color the entire thing. Be sure after you sand that you wipe it off. I don't think I showed that, but be sure you wipe it off because you saw all that dust, that the paint particles and stuff that come off, and you don't want that loose in your paint. So you just be sure you wipe it. Then I'm going to go also on the sides, because remember we always look at all angles, and right on the inside too we're going to paint that green. For me, drying it with some type of a tool in between is helpful, so that's what I'm going to be doing today. And then I'm going to take the hinges off. This is so easy. This is just a little tiny screwdriver. You can probably get like a glasses repair kit, something like that, for a little screwdriver like that. And you can get those at Dollar Tree. And just going to take those hinges off. Take it off both sides and the screws, and I'm going to save those for another project. So in order not to lose them, just going to put them in a little cup, put some painter's tape, and it's safe. Set it to the side, and it'll go in my toolbox. All right, we're going to move on. I've got the bottom painted completely with my 3 shades, and now I'm going to go up top and paint this one. This color right here is sheepskin. That gray color, I cannot remember exactly what that gray color was, but it was like it's one of my newer paints, so I haven't used it before. Be sure you shake your paint too before you use it, or stir it. Okay, she's going to get a coat of this flat white, and so is the other one. So both of those will be painted and dried. It's going to give us a decent base. But before we get started, it's really important that we cut off any glue that's on there, get something to sand with, and get your resin even if there's any spikes or areas that are not even. I'm looking to try to make it as symmetrical as possible on her wings. Also, there's like a little extra, you know, little bits and pieces here and there. You wouldn't notice it if it was sitting in your yard, perhaps, but since it's going to be a place we have to see it all the time and we will be looking at it closely, I want to make sure that it doesn't drive me nuts. So any sharp corners where the seams are, I'm just going to sand over those with my little nail file. And or you can use a sanding block, whatever, but the nail file gets in those little creases, and it makes it easy to use. And I'm just going to round off all those edges and make sure I don't have any clumps of glue that are showing, you know, because when we put the paint on there, you'll be able to see all that. Give it a good wipe down, and then spray it. So she has got one coat on the front and then one coat on the back. Both of these do. I'm going to make her a pale princess, so she is going to be buff, which is still darker than my skin tone. I'm going to take a mixture of brushes, but mainly detail type brushes, put on the spectacles. I'm going to put my paint to the side and start off with the legs and all the skin on the body. So I'll be painting her legs, her arms, her chest, back, face, ears, yeah, her hands. All of that will be painted this buff color. I painted one coat with a regular paintbrush and let it dry thoroughly in between. It can be kind of streaky. If you want to use like a chalk paint underneath this first, that would help with that. But to me, I didn't have a hard time with it, but it did take 2 coats. And be sure that you let it dry thoroughly in between, so when you put your second coat on, you're not lifting up the paint that you've already put down and removing all the hard work you've already done. So you see how I sort of graduated the color going upwards? Yeah, I like that look. And now we're going to scruff it up. So I'm going to grab some 60 grit, and I am going to go over that with the sandpaper and just really bite down into that paint. You'll see the colors that were underneath there, which gives it a nice look. Plus, I want this to look like maybe, you know, maybe somebody went to sleep in the forest. Maybe they went to sleep in the forest. They went out there where it was nice and cool and shady in the soft moss to do some reading, and they just left the books. They just completely left the books. So we're going to age them. Going to do the same thing on the top. And I like that this beige has a greenish or bluish cast to it. It looks good, I think, with the other colors in the box. So really get down in there. And I like to start off with just taking off a little bit and then taking a little more and a little more. Because like I've said before, what have I said before, y'all? You can't put it back, but you actually can when it's paint. But it's just easier to start off light and then, you know, make it darker where you want to make it darker, or heavier where you want to make it heavier. Same process here with using the antiquing wax. I want to go definitely in the areas that are depressed or in the cracks between the books to give that shadowing. I'm also going to be sure that I get around the edges and the sides. Going to make it look nice and dirty, but not filthy. Not filthy, right? We're not doing trolls here. No, we're not doing trolls. So we're going to continue around here until I've got all the surfaces, keeping in mind that you've got those surfaces on the edge that look like the book covers. I'm also going to go around the top. I went over that with some gray and then let that dry. And then you notice on the inside that gold is still gold, but I want to make it look more burnished, more aged. So I'm going to put that wax on there too and distress it in there. Then you can get a cloth and go over the inside of it to make sure that it's even. And then look at how it looks. I love it. So I've got some brushed gold here, and I'm going to go back over any of the areas on the book pages where possibly I've gotten a different color paint. So I'm just, and it really does sort of change the color as opposed to the color that's already there. You can't notice it as much on camera as in person, but just take my word for it. And you can skip that part if you don't have this type of a book stack. I'm just here for inspiration, y'all. I want to inspire you. So this is what it looks like. And I'm going to take my foam and stick it in there. I just stacked up some foam and cut it because I didn't have a block that would fit. Now this fits in there well. You don't even have to cut it. I'm going to take my moss mat, and this was just thrifted. And I'm almost to the bottom of it, y'all. How depressing. I really love this stuff. It's so easy to work with. It's thick. It still sheds, but you know, all of the moss mats really do shed. So once I get it cut approximately the size I want it, I'm going to kind of turn it under a little bit and really push it down into there between the box and the foam. Once I know that it is going to fit, and it doesn't have to fit perfectly, like I said, you can fold it down just a tad, or you can continue to trim it. Then I'm going to grab my corners, pull them up a little bit, and then just put down some glue so it doesn't go anywhere. This is just extra assurance that this does not fall apart. Now I'm going to take some nano tape. I think there's other names for the tape, so that may be a brand name, and I'm not sponsored, so I don't know. But I thrifted this. You're going to pull that tape off. You can, and yeah, for those of you who are wondering, yes, I do find brand new items at the thrift store, and I've had this for a while now. Didn't realize what it was, and now that I know what it is, I'm using it. Okay, so here she is dried. Put your glasses on because we're going to do some detailed work here. I'm going to paint her hair. Now, I love this copper color. This is called Worn Penny. I mainly use this color during the fall when I'm crafting in the fall, but I thought for a fairy, for her to have some beautiful, rich metallic hair, it would be perfect. So I'm just careful going around her ears, but you know, it doesn't have to be perfect, so you know, let her dry. Then we're going to stipple on the second layer above, and it really gives a better texture to the skin, and you don't see the streakiness. So now I've got some champagne colored metallic. I'm going to go over those little flowers in her hair. That's what they are. They're little flowers. I'm going to go over those. They have just a little sheen. I'm going to highlight her face, so she's going to get a little on her eyes. You know, where you would highlight, if you watch all those young folks doing the highlights on their videos, on the top lip, right on the nose, the chin. I put some on her clavicles, on her shoulders, and she's just beautiful. So we're going to go to the skirt next, and I am going to use a green color here. Now this is a brand new paint for me also. It is a, I opened the bottle and could not believe how rich and perfect this color is for fall. Look at that. I love it. I'll try to figure out the paint colors and let y'all know more specifically. If you need to know, just you can just put it in the comments, and then I'll go grab the bottles and look it up and give you the colors. So on the top, I decided to use the champagne as well. I took 2 coats with the champagne, but you can use white on top if you make a mess, almost like an eraser, if you happen to get any skin tone on it or whatever. And then put your champagne on top. But look at the sheen that gives to it. Oh, it's beautiful. Now, you see this one? We're going to put bronze on her wings. Can y'all tell I'm feeling fall already? This is not a fall project, but it could definitely go for a late summer look. So I'm going to put this beautiful, beautiful bronze all over her wings. This is 1 coat. We're going to let her dry. And then we're going to use nail glitter on her wings, y'all. Yes, nail glitter is a very fine, if you want it that way, you can look for the fine, and you can put that on there, and it gives such a beautiful coverage. They're not chunky. Yeah, I ordered this. No, I did not order this. Did I order this from TEMU? This may have been something I got at the dirt cheap store, but I might have gotten this from TEMU. But there's 4 colors in here, and they're all in shades of orange. So this is kind of orange and yellow. Look how pretty that is with her hair. So on the back of the wings, I'm going to use my Mod Podge, and I'm going to just sprinkle this on. Be sure you get a paper or some cardboard underneath so that you can save all the glitter that falls out. Then I'm going to take a very fine brush. I'm actually using my bridge brush here from Essential Stencil, and I'm going to go right up the division between each of those feathers, and I'm going to glitter just the divisions in the feathers. So it'll be like veining, like almost like when you see a butterfly. So that's what I wanted to do for her. I'm going to shake, 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 and get the excess off. See? And then I'm also going to get a dry, clean, firm brush and flick away all the extra that we don't need on her wings. So anything that's out of the pattern, we'll just kind of flick that out of there. Now we need to protect her, so we're going to use some sealer. Once she is sealed and dry, we're going to start with the box. Now these little wooden pieces came from the Dollar Tree, found a big bag of them, and it's the perfect height for her to look as though she's sitting in the grass. Then I'm going to grab my 1 piece of greenery that has a wire in it there of these scraps. Had a wire in it, and it looks so pretty and viney, so I thought maybe a little semi-arch on the side would be pretty, kind of balance it out. And then I'm going to take little pieces of the different ferns and greenery and start adding to this box, because this fairy found these books out in the woods and decided to make a home. She's at least got a little park area, a little rest area here. So I'm going to take another piece, and I kind of cut it down, and I'm going to put it in the back. I like all of the texture in here, and I love that it's that rich green color, because to me that looks like it is summertime. I'm going to grab those mushrooms. It's just a variety of them, and for those of you who haven't seen my other projects I did with these mushrooms, I'm going to link the video. Plus, I want to let you know that these came on a garland of wire, and I took them all off. So now I'm just placing them here and there. I cut them to make them flat on the bottom and to change the heights of them. So we have some variety. I don't want everything the same. This is not a, we're not growing these to sell. We're just letting them grow in the wild, right? I'm going to use a little grass there. I'm going to poke one on the top. I'm going to add some little lights. Now you use your little tea lights. These came from the thrift store. Use little tea lights if you want. You could even use fairy lights, but be sure that you put something in there to disguise them. It just looks like a little moonlight that's filtering through. I think it's pretty. I'm going to grab some of the moss from the Dollar Tree. I'm using the green because everything in here's got the greenish tint, keeping it congruent, keeping everything, right and matching. Then I cut the bottom of this one at a slant so that it would sit on the corner of that, or the edge of it. I'm just going to keep adding down and around until I get the look that I am striving for. So far, so good, right? This is really, really pretty. Really pretty. She loves her little space. So I'm looking at it from all angles, all directions, like I always tell y'all to do. Trying to decide what I am going to put in there now. What can add to it? And I remembered I had this baby breath, and I'm just going to cut it off of the picks, and I'm going to put that right over those flowers to give her a little more dimension. And look how pretty. It looks like she's been picking flowers, and she's got one on her anklet, one on her bracelet. She's got them in her hair. And of course, if she's wearing them, then she has to have a stash of them where she's picking them, right? So let's add some in here. Adds a little light back there too, little pops of white here and there. I'm just going to add them in, little surprise bursts of light in there, so it's not completely the bottom of the forest. And then just add them here and there, you know, continuing around. This is just kind of, this is my thing, y'all. Yes. Oh, my heart. My heart. This little girl needs a name. I would love for you to choose a name for her and put it in the comments. The next fairy is our log fairy. Okay, so here's the second one. She is spray painted nice and white. I'm going to use some of this brown moss from the Dollar Tree. It's floral moss. I'm going to use some dark espresso, buff, silver of your choice, some glitter with some black in it, really fine glitter. I'm going to get into my stash of goodies from my yard that's been dried, and this beautiful piece of wood that my husband and kids found in the creek at our farm in Mississippi. This is only part of it. It is so heavy, heavy. Okay, beautiful piece though. I love the rich darkness and all the cracks in it. It's just gorgeous. Very inspiring. Okay, so look at this girl once she is put together. Now you can leave her wings like this if you wanted to, but you know, I gotta put the magic in them wings. We finna do some glitter. If at any time in my life, got to have that glitter in those fairy wings, right? Not a big fan of glitter, but I am when we're looking at our mystical woodland creatures. Okay, so these are butterfly cutouts, and I got one of my picks, my flower picks, and just cut these pieces off. Okay, so my son is helping me here. This is a finger dauber. I learned about these through Trish and Kay from Crafting Cousins, and they really make a difference. I also wanted to show you this cup that my son bought for me with his own money. So thank you very much for helping. So here is a dried shelf mushroom from my stash. I'm going to just trim it down a little bit because there are dips and raised areas in here, and I want it to sit as flush as possible. I'm going to use some wood glue on here, and I'm also going to use hot glue. Plus, we're going to use one more thing in a moment. So I'm going to get that where I like it, press it into place, give it just a chance for the hot glue to set up. Then I'm going to grab some of that nano tape, or whatever it's called. I'm going to fold it over on itself. I think it's called wall mounting tape at Dollar Tree. So you can get it at Dollar Tree. I'm going to roll it, and then I'm going to press it up in the little gap that I still had in between here on that mushroom. I don't want anything to fall. So we're going to see how strong this tape is. Look, the hot glue and the tape together, and I could pick that up. That's pretty amazing. I think that's going to stay. We're not putting anything heavy on the top, little one, so we're just going to leave it. Put it up there and just leave it with that. Look how beautiful her wings look with that recollection black glitter. Oh, so pretty. So we're going to seal her as well. We don't want anything coming off her wings. One good coat and let her dry out. I'm going to take that moss and go in all these little indentations. Well, not all of them, but you know, pretty good bit of them, to look like there is some life that is growing in it, even though my husband dug this out of the bottom of our creek. I'm going to take just, you know, a little stick or something and kind of poke that down in there so it looks kind of nested into that. I'm going to go down here on this bottom one too. I'm going to go right over where the crack is on the top of this one, and I'm going to make a little backing of moss here. You can use green moss if you want, but since I did so much green on the other one, I wanted this one to be a little more maybe end of summer, kind of transitioning into fall, and I think I achieved that, so I'm happy about that. You'll see in the end, right? You always let me know what you think in the end. So I'm just going to put these along here. These two branches that I got, I thrifted from the Goodwill bins. I thrifted them and I've had them for a few years, y'all. But they are beautiful. They have sort of maybe a young tree vibe, a vine vibe, but they're really pretty. What you don't necessarily see in here, I don't think, no, I know that I did not put myself using the staple gun here. I used some shallow staples on the underside where you couldn't see it on a few pieces. I think I have 3 little sections. So I glued it and did a little stapling. Be sure you disguise that, you know, put a little paint over it so nobody sees that in there. I'm going to take another pick. I'm going to cut it in half, have it looking like 2 picks once you fluff it out, and twist up your little vines. And I think a good place here would be right in this big crack in the side. So I'm just going to add some glue and then some more moss. It's going to help hold it in. With these, I didn't have to staple. All right, and the little crack in the bottom, we're going to add one right here. So you see at the top we got high and then medium and then low. So we have a variety of heights in there, which makes it interesting to the eye. It gives you a lot to look at, as well as the depth and dimension that we always look for on our projects. So again, if you're looking for any particular color or anything of the paints that I use, just let me know in the comment section. I'll be happy to put that down there for you. Then here are the butterfly sticks that we made. 2 of these I'm going to cut the sticks off of because I decided to put those directly down onto the vines. I think they're strong enough to hold them, and they are. And I put those back to back like that so that, you know, if you see them from the other angle, you still get a pretty color and not a white backing. We'll leave some of these on the picks so that they look as though they're flying. And look, we're going to put one right on her ankle as if she is looking at the little butterfly and it's resting on her ankle. I'm just bending it a little bit so that the wings look like they were, you know, like a butterfly. And then this tall one I'll put right in the top. Gonna add a little glue to hold that one in place. And y'all look at it. Is this not cute? I don't know. I don't guess you could say cute, but I think it's whimsical, and I think that it is just so gorgeous and woody and cottagey, and it's just beautiful. I really do think so. And I think the color of the butterflies gives it a lot of charm. That orange and gold is just really pretty. Now you can use little mushrooms to go on your areas here, you know, in any little spaces that you have, but I decided that I wanted to still just continue along with those neutral browns and greens. I took a tiny miniature wreath and just put it on that top step. You know, maybe she's a crafter too, right? We don't know. Maybe she made her own little wreath. Then I'm going to take a gumball from the yard out of our tree, and I am going to flatten it on one side, add some glue, and put it beside her. So she has a little orb beside her, just a little something interesting and pretty. And this is how it's going to look. And it will stand on its own perfectly. Look at that. And then I'm just going to get rid of all of those extra little threads of glue that I have all over the place just to clean it up. I absolutely love this. This is why I thrift. This is why I use natural items, because to me there is nothing in the world like bringing the outdoors inside. Nothing. I love it. I love to be outside too, but you know, I live in the South and I'm not about the heat of the summer, but I can bring those goodies indoors and enjoy them from my air conditioning. I appreciate each and every one of you. I would love it if you would subscribe to my channel so you don't miss seeing these goodies. Unique goodies. Lovely, budget-friendly goodies. Share it with somebody who you think that would like it, and give me a thumbs up. And I really, really appreciate it. Thanks for stopping by, and I'll see you again soon. Bye!